Okay. Once again, good evening, everybody. This is Joe Bullis. This is MELS 602, Clinical Coach 2 Zoom session. It's February the 27th. And I did not realize until I guess it was this morning, my wife and I were talking, and it's leap year. I looked at the calendar many times, and of course, it's payday tomorrow, so I guess that's what I was focusing on for all the state employees out there. And I didn't even look at Saturday, but so happy leap year, everybody. So Saturday is an extra day. Perfect that it falls on the Saturday. So just go and have a good time on Saturday. Enjoy that extra day of the year. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. Tonight's section, excuse me, tonight's session is we're going to be talking about APTL Task 3 and APTL Task 4. I feel like everybody's in pretty good shape with Task 1 and Task 2. They've been coming in, been giving feedback and doing revisions and going ahead and getting some grades down and through the Dropbox. So feel good about the progress that you're making. Task 3 is going to go fast, and Task 4 is going to go really fast. So I think this is the 7th week into the semester. So what you want to do is wrap up the APTL, and then you can, I hope up to this point you're continuing to log those internship hours and putting stuff aside for your competency folio. The next time we're together, I'm just going to kind of review the task stream stuff just to make sure everyone's clear on that. And for me, probably after the next class Zoom session is when I'll start looking into task stream more and kind of looking for comments from your competency folio, seeing that you put in those additional artifacts in and requesting comments so we can make sure we keep you on track with that. But anyway, let's get back to the topics at hand, and that's Task 3 and Task 4. Task 3 is you're going to get your team together and you're going to look at what you did. You're going to look at the literature review and the research that you did. And Task 1, you're going to look at that checklist. And then you and your team are going to look together at what you found out by utilizing that checklist and or survey. And Task 2, and then come up with a growth plan. As it says here in the Scale Handbook, you want to take that plan, you're going to take that team together, say, okay, this is what the best practices say, this is what our analysis said, and this is some things that we found that we need to work on, but let's form an action plan. As I've said many times this semester, same process as the APSL, you're just working with teacher empowerment. And once you and your team get that together, you're going to create a presentation and you're going to present that to your school improvement team and or your administrators, and just kind of let them know what's coming, let them know, this being the subject of teacher empowerment and efficacy and how teachers feel about the building, where they're at, you do want to be cognizant of the fact that you don't necessarily, if there were anything out there that might be a gray cloud in the area, you don't really want to focus on where that cloud is or who said what. You want to be careful about that because you want people to feel free to share their opinions, especially if you're doing the survey, you talk to some people, you want them to feel free about that. So you don't want to single anybody out. And once again, if it's going to show some, and I'm trying to think of the right term to use, but maybe some challenges might be the best thing to say. If it's going to show some challenges of your school that might be a source of sensitivity to your administrator, then it might just be okay to let them know what's coming, and kind of do that in a diplomatic way. It's not a gotcha. It's not a zinger. Me and your evaluator and of course your peer review team. But just like the cliche goes, what's done in Vegas stays in Vegas. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Well, what happens in the MELS program stays in the MELS program. So the only people going to be seeing this outside of your peer review group is me and your evaluator, and we're not talking. So just make them aware of that. So if it does show some challenges, this is probably going to happen again when we get into the CAP, the culture advocacy plan. Same type of thing. You actually do later on in one of the one of the evidences you kind of critique the school leadership. So you just want to be sensitive to that, and it might be better to just present this to the administrator rather than the school improvement team, or give your administrator an outline, and then see if they are okay with presenting it to the school improvement team. Now I'm going to say that, and I'm going to say this: when I was a principal, and then I'm not going to give you a long war story of when I was a principal. But when I was a principal, my first year, I did something that at that time was kind of unheard of. At the end of the year, I hired a guy with some of my Title I money, Van Langston. He was with a consortium in Chapel Hill, Carborough, I believe, at the time. And that's when professional learning communities first came out, and everybody was really gung ho about it and kind of trying to get on board. I hired him to come in and do a 360 survey looking at my leadership. He stayed for a week. He did observations of the classes. He went and collected qualitative data of the school, went out to the community and interviewed people, went out into the classrooms, interviewed teachers, everything purely anonymous. And then I sat there at a faculty meeting at the end of the year, and he reported to me what he found out in that faculty meeting. And now this is a first year principal doing this. And there were a lot of things there. I was like, you know what, that hurt my feelings. Of course, I didn't let them know that, but it was invaluable to me, especially I stayed at that school 3 more years before I got moved up into middle school. And I think had I not done that the first year, I wouldn't have had a greater time the next 3 years that I had at that elementary school. So for me, it didn't bother me to hear about things that were not going good, things that I might not have realized needed to be addressed. Because if we're talking about what's best for the school and what's best for the kids and what's best for the teachers, then you're going to be able to need to be able to take a few hits, so to speak. So I'm hoping your principal will have that same mindset, that this is an opportunity to really take a look at what's going on in the school in the way of teacher empowerment, and and have that growth mindset mentality of, hey, if we see some things out here that I wasn't aware of that needed to be addressed, and let's address them and get them fixed. It's not going to do anything but help everybody to address those things and work on them. So I just kind of wanted to put a framework around that as you prepare to present to the school improvement team and or your administrator. But you never want to. A principal doesn't want to be surprised. You won't want to be surprised as an AP or as a principal. So if you see some things that may come out in that presentation, I would just go ahead and meet with the principal beforehand and say, listen, I just want to let you know this is kind of what I'm going to be talking about, and get their perspective. Because at the end of the day, once you graduate from this program, it's very unlikely that you'll see me again. But and you may not even see the principal again. You may get a job right out of the gate. But if not, you're going to have to stay there for a while with that principal, unless they get moved or you get moved, whatever. So I probably talked about that too much. I'm sorry about the rambling, but I just wanted to make sure that I got that across to you. All right, so task 3, you're going to do a growth plan. Going to be the same format as an action plan. You can check out the template on the Blackboard shell. But I do want to address this because I did have a question. It was a very good question. And in the prompt, it talks about what you're going to do and how you want to create the narrative and kind of what needs to go into the narrative, just as the other prompts do. So it talks about this. The growth plan will need to include a vision, documentation to support identified needs, list of strategic indicators of success, short and long-term objectives, activities to address the identified goals and objectives, communicate this to the stakeholders, timeline of activities, and some of this is some of those basic things that are in an action plan. What are we going to do? Who's going to be doing it? Who's going to be responsible that it gets done? How are we going to evaluate it and see if it was a success? How long are we going to try it? And once we get the evaluation done and we determine what happened, how are we going to communicate back to the stakeholders on how effective this action plan was or how effective it might not have been? And so those are your headings. Now, if you take a look at that in the prompt, and then you scroll down here to the rubric. The rubric is not the bullets in the rubric, which you remember in the if you were in Dr. Todd's class last semester, the rubric, Dr. Todd kind of went on with the rubric as, okay, these are your headings. The first bullet in the rubric under proficiency, that's your first subheading. The second bullet is your second subheading. And that's kind of how the APSL played out. The APSL is a little bit different. If you look, I'm going to pull up now, and what you should be seeing now is the helpful hints. If you look at the helpful hints, and this is not my document, this was a document created by one of the full-time associate professors at the university. It was sent to us. We were asked to include it in our shell, and we were asked to use it as we go.
Excuse me, Dr. Bullis, we're not seeing the helpful hints.
Thank you. Thank you so much for telling me. Let me
worries.
reshare that. Like I said, Zoom has done something different with how they let you share things, and now you have to go off and click on each thing. Used to be you could just click on your screen and whatever was on the top screen, it came through. All right, I'll get it. And I appreciate you letting me know that. Okay, so you should be seeing it now. Okay, great. All right, so once again, this was a document created by one of the associate professors that was sent out to us by Dr. Lamb, I believe, asked to put it in our Blackboard shell and offer it to you as a resource. So I'm not as familiar with it as if it would be something that I created. I mean, it's a great document, but it has created a little bit of miscommunication, and that's on me. I'll own that because I didn't really read through it thoroughly before we started this semester to make sure that I was kind of up to speed on everything. But anyway, on task 3, same thing, talks about in the scale handbook, doing your growth plan, what needs to be included in the growth plan. So in that growth plan and in your narrative, I should have said, in your narrative, you need to refer to what you found out in task 1. Well, when you do the presentation and in the narrative, as you report to the school improvement team and the administration team, give them the backstory. What were some of the best practices that you researched? What does your checklist look like? How did you go around the process of utilizing that checklist and survey? And what did you find out? So that all kind of needs to be included in that presentation along with the growth plan. But here, this gives you explicit instructions on what your headings need to be. And that's okay. When you do task 3, use this as your heading. You have a heading, a vision of positive school environment. And what your team has decided to do, you're going to kind of give the backstory. You want to kind of talk a little bit about task 1 and task 2, and what you found out, kind of review with the reader what they've already read, but kind of get set up for the growth plan. And then you're going to talk about how these areas are going to be affected by the growth plan and what you see. So a vision for a positive school environment, documentation to support identified needs, list of strategic indicators of success. And then once you go through all of these and you kind of discuss this, then you're going to take all that information. This actually is your growth plan. How are you going to address this? How are you going to address this? How are you going to address this? What are your short-term and long-term objectives? What's the strategies and goals that you want and objectives you want to accomplish with this plan? How are you going to communicate this, the progress with the vital stakeholders? So this is all the stuff that's included in the growth plan. So you write a narrative about how you're going to address each of these topics. And then this same information, you put it into a growth plan template. All right, so you get this for your headings for your task or your subheadings. As you go through this task 3, then you create the growth plan. Now, when you look at the rubric, I'm going to pull the rubric back up. These areas right here should come out. You don't have to draw attention to them specifically. You don't have to do a heading that states this, okay? And you don't have to do a heading that states this. But within that growth plan, I should be able to look in that growth plan and see what your strategies for building efficacy are. I should be able to look in that growth plan and see what the opportunities are for the teachers to assume leadership, so on and so forth. So it's not that you have to draw attention to it in the way of a subheading, but by looking in that plan, these things should be addressed. And multiple use of digital tools and technology. Well, that's your presentation. You know, it could be a Google slideshow. It could be the graphic organizer in Google Docs. It could be you presenting, you know, to the team and doing a video clip, all that stuff that we always talk about. That's how you satisfy that. So that's task 3. What questions do you have? I'm glad y'all are so smart. Yeah, go ahead, Jenny.
So if you look under where you have this rubric pulled up and it says accomplished, the first thing that's underlined is a video recording. Do we need to incorporate that into task 3, like a link to the video recording, or?
Yeah, great question, Jenny. Thank you so much. That it is not mandatory. However, if you want to be considered to get a 4 and be in the accomplished column, then yes, you will need to include a video of you doing your presentation to the school improvement team or to the administration. And that can just be a YouTube link within the document. Usually, you know, I just address the proficient column. And of course, I should know better because you guys are high flyers, that you'd be focusing in on the accomplished too. So that's really the only difference between proficient and accomplished, is just proof that you recorded yourself doing this presentation to your school improvement team and to your principal. If you do that, make sure that your principal and your school improvement team knows that they're going to be recorded. I had a candidate 2 semesters ago in the APTL 602, did everything, did the growth plan. There was some gray clouds in the air around that school. The candidate did not let the principal know they were going to be recorded, did not share with the principal beforehand some of those challenges that they were going to be bringing up. The principal stopped the recording right in the middle of the presentation and said, "I will not be recorded. And if you want to present this to me, we're going to do it in my office one-on-one. There's not going to be a recording." If that happens, let me know. We can work around it. We can even, it's not necessarily going to prevent you from getting accomplished, because if that happened, then you can just videotape yourself doing the presentation to an empty room and just show yourself. So we'll get you there if you need to get there, but I just want you to be aware of that. If you're going to record, especially if there's some challenges in some of the information you're going to be sharing, make sure that your administration knows that.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Appreciate that question. All right. Any other questions? And I'm going to talk about task 4 just a tad. Okay, great. But, you know, if there are, let me know. Stop me. If it comes up later, email me, whatever we need to do. So we're going down to task 4. Now, this is
Can I go back to that a second?
Sure.
I'm sorry. All right. So Amanda and I, we both work at the same school. Is it possible for both of us to present at the same time? Or do we have to do 2 separate presentations? Because I'm not sure that our administrative team wants to sit twice.
Right. And I that is fine. If you put that recording in there, let's play, you know, we'll need to talk a little bit. There's well, not several, but there's actually a couple of options here. One option that would be that you do a co-presentation, and we write it up in the narrative, and we're transparent about why we're doing this. Another candidate is in the program, and we say it a whole lot different way, but we chose for the as far as being efficient on our administrative team's time to co-present. And what you would do is you would present part and she would present part. It kind of runs into some difficulty because your checklist may be different, your analysis may be different. If you're working within that, then there are some restraints, and we would just kind of have to work on it. All three of us would have to work on it together to get it to where it would satisfy the rubric. Or what you could do is you could flip a coin, and whoever gets heads presents to the administrative team, and whoever gets tails presents to the camera later on in another room at a different time. As I said, the great thing would be to have the people there show that you're presenting to them and they're being engaged. But if you can't work that out, then that's fine. Or if you got a real good relationship to with your principal, things look good, good information. One of you present to the school improvement team, one of you present to the principal. Or one of you present to the school improvement team, and whoever couldn't be there, you do a makeup session, and the other one presents the information. So just kind of you and Amanda talk. Amy, I'm sorry, it was Amy, right?
Amanda.
Amanda, okay. You and Amanda talk, and just kind of see how you feel would work best in your school. Let me know, and like I said, we'll kind of work on it together.
Thank you. Sorry for so many questions.
No. These are great questions, Jenny. No, don't. This is your time, so I appreciate you asking them. Keeps me on my feet, and that makes me feel like you need me. So I appreciate that. Thank you. All right. So task 4. There was some differences if you were in Dr. Todd's class, and maybe even Dr. Church's class last semester. We talked about this with the ABSL. The rubric says one thing is about the number of competencies you need to reflect on. The syllabus said another thing, and there was some discrepancy there. This is going to be simple as far as ABSL Task 4. Whatever the competencies were that you did not reflect on in ABSL 1, you reflect on in ABSL, in ABSL 5, you reflect on in ABSL Task 4. So at the end of this course, you will have reflected on every competency. Now, if you want to reflect on a competency more than once, that's fine. You can do more, just don't do less. That's what I'm saying. So it says here 13 competencies, but you guys reflected on more than where you would not have 13 competencies here to reflect on. So whatever the ones were that you did not address in the ABSL, make sure that you address in the ABSL to where at the end of 602, you will have touched each competency at least once. That's what I'll be looking for. That's what your evaluator will be looking for. Any questions on that? Make sure that you include, in Dr. Todd's class, there was also a question about, do we talk about our clinical experiences? Do we talk about our content experiences? Do we talk about what we did with the ABSL? If you look in the rubric, you analyze aspects of course content, clinical experiences, including the evidence, which in this case will be the ABSL, and with your competence. So you want to talk about all that. You want to talk about what you did in the ABSL, but you also want to talk about, how did you apply maybe some things that you learned in your course as well. If you got a really good internship story that you want to talk about, and it fits a competency really well, then do that. So by the content, by your internship hours, and by what you did on the ABSL, you will have something to talk about and reflect upon for each of the competencies that you haven't already reflected on. Any questions on that? Okay, groovy. Once again, you want to we're at week 7. By the next time we talk, probably want to be really close to having this all done, so you could, and there again, this being 602, you don't have all the other stuff that you did in 601. Remember, we told you last semester is going to be really the most difficult semester that you have. So you do have a little bit of time here. You not really have a lot to do in Tasktream when you talk about the competency folio, and that's basically it. You do not have a school ed disposition to do. You do not have a competency analysis to do. All you really need to do is go in and upload the APTL into the DRF and work on your competency folios. This would be a good opportunity as you're wrapping up the APTL and getting task 4 done to really make sure that your competency folio is in good shape and you have addressed each of the things that you need to address at this point in time. So, you know, really should be a little more easy going for you this semester. So it's right at the 30-minute mark. I'll be happy to stay here and answer any questions that you have. And if you don't have any and you think of some later on, please feel free to email me, and we can, as always, we can call if you need to talk on the phone. We can Zoom if you need another Zoom session. Any feedback I leave, if it's not clear, you have a question on what I meant, or maybe I said, well, hey, you need to put this in here, and you're thinking, well, it is in there, and you're thinking, well, he missed it. Let me know, because I can miss it. I am not perfect, and I try to do a lot of these on my lunch hour, and because I'm in class, I'm doing Zoom sessions in the evenings. So if I did miss something, I'm not above going back and saying, hey, you're right, I was wrong. You don't need to do anything. So just let me know. All right, well, if that's it for everybody, I am going to end the meeting. I'll post the video recording. I'll send it out by email, and I'll post it in the video library. Thank you, guys. I appreciate your time, and thank you for all your efforts and the good work you're doing. I hope you have a great evening. I hope you and your family stay safe and healthy till I see you again. Good night, everybody.